Welcome to the TOEFL Listening section. In this section, you will listen to an academic lecture and then answer questions about what you heard. You may take notes while you listen. You will have time to review your notes before answering the questions. Listen to part of a lecture in a university class. You will hear the lecture only once, so listen carefully. After the lecture, you will answer some questions about what you heard. Some questions ask about the main ideas and supporting details. Other questions ask you to make inferences or connections between ideas. Answer each question based on what is stated or implied in the lecture.
Good morning, everyone. Today we will examine World War I technology, focusing on three interrelated innovations that reshaped modern warfare: tanks, aircraft, and chemical weapons. I want to start with tanks because their development directly responded to the static nature of trench warfare. Early tanks were an attempt to cross barbed wire and resist small arms fire while carrying infantry across no man's land. The first British tanks appeared in 1916 based on the Mark I design. They used caterpillar tracks that distributed weight and allowed limited cross-country movement. However, mechanical reliability was poor, with frequent engine and transmission failures. Despite mechanical problems, tanks had tactical and psychological effects. At the Battle of Cambrai in 1917, massed British tanks demonstrated how armor, when coordinated with artillery and infantry, could break parts of the trench system and force local breakthroughs. Tank design then diverged. The British pursued heavy, armored vehicles to survive machine gun fire, while the French developed lighter designs such as the Renault FT. The Renault FT was revolutionary because it placed the engine at the rear and had a fully rotating turret, a layout that became the standard in later tanks. Tanks required new tactics and logistics. Crews needed combined arms support, and armored assaults depended on clearing obstacles and coordinating artillery barrages. In short, tanks did not immediately replace infantry, but they initiated a tactical shift toward mobile, protected assault. Now let us turn to aircraft. At the start of the war, airplanes were mainly reconnaissance platforms. Observers took photographs and directed artillery by telephone or wireless signals. As the conflict progressed, aircraft gained defensive roles. The invention of synchronization or interrupter gear allowed pilots to fire a machine gun through the propeller arc, and that transformed reconnaissance aircraft into true fighters. Fighter design matured rapidly. Planes like the German Fokker and the British Sopwith fought for control of the skies. Aerial reconnaissance then evolved into artillery spotting, ground attack, and limited bombing missions by two-engine aircraft. Aircraft technology also pushed engine development, lightweight materials, and aerial photography techniques. Pilots had to master navigation, formation flying, and gunnery, and airfields and maintenance units became crucial parts of the logistics chain. Finally, chemical weapons entered the battlefield with dramatic effect. In April 1915, at the Second Battle of Ypres, German forces released chlorine gas against Allied trenches, producing panic, respiratory injury, and casualties. Chemical agents expanded beyond chlorine to include phosgene and later mustard gas. Delivery methods varied from mass release of gas clouds from cylinder lines to artillery shells that dispersed toxic agents over target areas. Countermeasures developed quickly. Soldiers improvised cloth over the face, and armies issued respirators and more effective gas masks. Gas masks became standard issue within months and reduced the lethal effectiveness of chemical attacks. Chemical weapons had tactical value in creating confusion and disrupting defenses, but they rarely produced decisive strategic victories because weather, logistics, and protective measures limited their effectiveness. To conclude, World War I technologies were weapons of adaptation. Tanks introduced armored mobility and demanded combined arms. Aircraft transformed reconnaissance into control of the air and tactical support. Chemical weapons introduced a new domain of attack and defense that forced rapid countermeasures and legal debate after the war. All three technologies influenced post-war doctrine and design. The war was a laboratory where engineers, tacticians, and soldiers learned hard lessons about integration, logistics, and the human dimensions of new weapons. That is the end of the lecture. We will now move to questions and discussion about specific case studies and technical aspects.
Listen again to part of the lecture. Then answer the question.
Gas masks became standard issue within months and reduced the lethal effectiveness of chemical attacks.
This concludes the listening section. For more TOEFL practice tests and study materials, visit Spinta.org.